But I am here with Val, and we are talking about voting. I know last time we had her, it was her and Brandon, and we were talking about voting, but we were talking specifically about the importance of going out to vote, especially since it was during the election time. And hey, we made change this year, so I'm
Mhm.
proud of that. I'm seriously proud of that. The small, quiet clap. I'm proud. Thank you guys so much for giving us such a positive response when they were here, and for actually showing up and going out to vote. I love the pictures that I saw on the Discord. It was awesome. And hopefully we do that during this upcoming election with the local elections. But to see more about that, if you're watching this on YouTube, just go back to why voting is important on my YouTube channel. It's a video where I am talking. It's about 45 minutes long. But me and Val are talking about voting and stuff like that, and some surprising just a little tidbit, because this is something that I see a lot when I talk to people. Is people will say that they're a felon and they can't be registered to vote. But from our last conversation, and I believe Val, you can double confirm this, they are allowed to vote as long as they meet. They have their paperwork done and all that other stuff. Can you give me a little
Right.
bit specific about that, by the way?
Yeah, no, you're correct. I want to see if I have a voter registration card around me so I can get the exact verbiage. But
To be
yeah, just
accurate.
as long as you are done with your time, you're no longer on probation, all your fines have been paid, you are good to get registered to vote and get your rights back.
Hey, that's good. So yeah, so that's just like something that we go a little bit more detail um in that video. Water dripping. Water dripping. Uh sorry. So that's something we go into that detail. We also like talk about experiences as Val is a deputy registrar, and her experiences out canvassing, and we talk about voter suppression in that video as well. So we will be talking a little bit about some of the stuff we talked in the last video. But basically, because we didn't get into the last one, even though I thought we did,
Mm.
we're going to talk about alternatives to voting. Personally, I have found, let's see, in my quick little research, I found one, two, three, four. I found four in my little thing. I know we were focusing mostly on ranked choice voting, but there's four alternatives to that I found. There's actually a lot more, but these are the four big ones I have seen. We're going to be talking about why voting is important, and why being registered, why getting registered to vote is so important, because it's not just like the ability to vote. Getting registered to vote actually opens up a bunch of opportunities for a person, a lot more than I thought. I'm serious. Like I'm like, oh, you get registered to vote, but it's apparently no. There's a lot of stuff you can do with that registration, and we will go into that in a little bit. And we'll be talking about like a lot of the stuff. We'll throw facts and stuff like that out there when we can, but it's gonna be mostly our opinions about these current systems that we can encourage other people to talk to their local government about. We're gonna be just it's gonna be very casual. It's not gonna be as more it's going to be less interviewee and more of a conversation that we're going to be having around here, so you guys get around with the vibe. And we're going to be talking about how to become a deputy registrar, the links you can go, the dates to do it, and if like we're having an event here, but at your local level as well, if you live somewhere else within the country, we can give you that information as well. This is Val. She was on before. There's a YouTube video of us actually doing our little interview about voting and why voting is important. But yeah, we're just going over the stuff. And then we're going to talk about voter suppression and voter fraud. These topics are not in order. These are just the way I texted it to Val. I was just like, this, and this. And these seem like good topics to talk about. All right, so but because it wouldn't be casual if we just got into the topics. Val, how are you? And would you like to say hi to everybody? Because apparently they're all coming in.
Hi, everybody. I am just well. I'm actually quarantined right now, which is very quarantined right now. It's very annoying, but I am feeling great and healthy and hoping for a negative test.
That's good. That's good. Yeah. So the line of work that we currently do is very high risk. So I'm lucky that I have been in such good health and stuff like that. But it is one of those things where if an incident happens, it's like, okay, time to we're gonna do this, and then we'll go back in.
Just never
Um,
be too cautious in a panoramic.
a panoramic. You got that panoramic view.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So, is there any topic you want to specifically get into? I keep doing this. I don't know why. I don't know what to do with my hands right now. I'm like, I just got out of the shower and I'm like rubbing. I'm like, stay awake, stay awake.
Oh my goodness, we can start wherever. I mean, Georgia's votes are being counted as we speak right now. It is so huge for the Democrats, Ossoff and Warnock, to win these seats. Biden said we're getting $2,000 if this
Oh,
happens.
I haven't even kept up with that. At this point, I was just like, is it gonna happen? Or is seems like everything's getting stopped. So I'm like, if it happens, it happens.
I've been trying to manifest it. I've been clutching my crystals like all day. Like this is
Just be like, harness the powers of the crystals. Give me the superpowers I need. Let lightning strike twice.
anything to get the majority. We need it.
Yeah. Well, also, because what I was recently watching some more news is one of my favorite political news channels to watch because they like so like much like I do when I do my research, they put their information in a Google Doc that people can actually fact check them on. And like the this if Georgia goes Democrat, it'll actually put the Democrats in a very interesting position because no longer will they be able to make excuses why a
Mm,
bill or something won't
right.
go through. Like
No.
they will have to hold themselves accountable for their actions because they can no longer blame the Republicans. They can no longer blame anyone else but themselves because currently
Right.
the DNC has been shooting themselves in the foot a lot. And I
Hmm.
think, one of the things they need to do is they need to start listening to what the people are saying because
Right.
like Biden may be president, we may win the Democratic in Georgia, but at the end of the day we still have to hold them accountable. We have to hold our party accountable for the promises they make. It's just one of those things where it's just like I'm sorry, like glad you won, but like dude,
Right.
shit is very messed up right now and you have to start making like gassing the wheel.
Yeah. No, I agree 100%. I definitely think, but we, the people who voted them in need to be the ones, holding them accountable, holding their feet to the fire, bringing up promises that they made, and just holding them accountable, emailing them, calling them, tweeting them, Instagram, DMing them, whatever,
Yeah.
just
Call
we
their
have
phone,
to
blow
keep
their
making
phones up.
noise. Yeah, we got to.
So yeah, so I guess we'll go into because like I guess I want to get into because we'll start with our the second thing that I said was why is voting so important then? Like because like we already voted in the general election, but now we have a local election. At least here in the state of Texas, we have a local election coming up in May, and I don't know what other states are like, but I guarantee you they have local elections this year as well. And so I guess I want to get into why local elections are so important.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that local elections are far more important than the presidential elections because, locally, that's where you live. That's what affects you every single day. And so there are city council people and mayors who, are in elected positions who are making rules about our lives every single day. And I know for myself, I want to make sure that there are people in there who, think like I do, want like I do, who want want marijuana to be legal like I do, who want Black people to be treated like human beings, like they should. And so, to vote, to make sure that those people are in office, because I feel like the people who are in office are a direct reflection of who is voting for them. And so if your district has an old white man in it, well, that's who's voting. So and that old white guy usually doesn't want weed to be legal and usually doesn't give a damn about Black folks. So if you want to feel change, immediately, not immediately, but quicker then you ought to participate in your local elections.
Yeah, I often always say, and I often always say that local elections are so important because this is like if you live in a certain district in your town, neighborhood, or whatever, that municipality has control, a lot more control over your life than you think, because like
Right.
your day to day life, like
Mm-hmm.
the roads on your streets
Yeah.
that you drive on, they have control over the health care that you're provided. They have control over the schools, like there's school
Mm-hmm.
commissioners that make decisions for schools. If you have kids, it is very important to pay attention to local politics, because you'll have a school commissioner that like will vote on the funding a school gets, the education a school gets. Like the reason why education in certain areas is different is because those local cities vote on who that school commissioner will allow and won't allow inside those schools. Teachers unions, if they're not strong, it's because of the school commissioner. You have like your mayor, if you want to see change, tangible change in your city, with city ordinance laws, the way it's governed, and the way, because the mayor actually fights the state. So like, not fight, that's a wrong term, but usually
Yeah.
the mayor is the one that is kind of our representative when it comes to state government. A mayor can actually, at least in Texas, it's not true for all states, but at least in the city of Texas, I mean in the state of Texas, um, cities can actually oppose a state mandate because we have such a strong
Right.
municipality.
Yeah.
If you care at all about like parks, that's your
Right.
councilman. Your councilman takes care of your district, so they listen to the voters' needs and they try to pass legislation that will benefit their district. You want to see
Right.
construction, parks, housing. If you care about healthcare, that's local as well. We think that's a federal thing. No, it's local, because your local government is what provides those institutions to be there. So I always think local elections are a lot more important because they affect my day-to-day life on such a huge scale that if like when you're walking by, you may not think about it.
Right. And then your taxes too, that's a
Ah,
huge part
yes.
of it. And then, especially, with what we're working on, with trying to change, a local law, with the CPS and the SAWS, like there's a lot of things like, the CPS and the SAWS, like that's affecting our bill that you pay every single month. So why wouldn't you want to have a say? And if those rates are going to get hiked up as they've been, hiked up, it shouldn't be like that. That campaign is talking about putting the city back in city public services. So we should have a say in our rates going up. And so that is, a part of voting locally is, changing laws and, keeping your money in your pocket, hopefully, or make sure it's going to, the best places it could be going to.
Yeah, agreed. I like 100%, especially like it's good to stay into like what is going on in your city, the petitions running, the laws that are trying to be put on the ballot and stuff like that. It is good to pay attention to what's on the ballot and not just go down in a straight line, but actually see
Right.
what each thing is saying. Obviously, it's going to be surrounding a lot about voting. If you haven't been introduced to the lovely Miss Val, she is an amazing person. She's a deputy registrar and one of the founders of the Radical Registrars, which is an organization that helps people get registered to vote. In addition,
And vote informed.
informed, yes,
And vote
and be
informed. Yeah.
informed.
Yes.
And uh, so yeah, it is super important. And I guess when getting into that, we should probably talk about like why it's important to get registered to vote. I guess we could just transfer right into that,
Yeah.
because I'm realizing with the work I'm doing, the petition we're running with 143 and 174, I'm finding out that being registered to vote is not just for voting. There are so many other
Right.
things that we use it for. We can use our registration to like sign petitions. Only registered voters are allowed to like sign petitions, charters, and stuff like that. Registered voters have a lot of power with uh, being a constituent, right? Constituent is our registered voters or a group of registered voters, and that they hold a lot of power over when they try to call their local government, when they talk to their councilman or their mayor. You just let them know you're a constituent, you are a registered voter, and they will quickly want to hear exactly what you have to say because that vote matters, man. They're like, "Ooh,
Right.
you have something to say. Uh, what can I do for you?" Is quickly how quickly they'll address you.
Oh yeah, no, there's definitely power and privilege in being registered to vote and, the things you can do with that. And definitely, being registered to vote, allowing yourself to vote, but also allowing yourself to be able to sign petitions that can eventually change laws. I've gotten people registered to vote in this process, of course. Justice and I worked together in the petitioning, and he actually we ran into each other out on
Oh
turf, and
yeah,
I
that's
just
right.
went jogging with him to get like 6 or 7 people registered to vote. So Justice will be going through the deputy registrar class, and he will be able to get people registered to vote very soon. And
I
he'll
hope
have
so.
some stories, I'm sure, for y'all. Um, but yeah, and like letting these people know, like, hey, like, one, you are absolutely eligible to get registered to vote. But two, like, look what you can do. Like, you can actually help change laws, like people who are locked up and being inside and seeing the system from the inside out, like their voices are so important. And it's so important to let them know, hey, you can vote and your voice is super important.
Yeah. And not just the like just like yeah, your voices because like I feel like a lot of people when they're like try to tell someone, "Hey, get registered to vote. You can vote." And people are like, "Ah, I have to vote?"
Right.
It's like but like when you spin it like where you're like, "Hey, listen, if you get registered to vote, you can make tangible change." And not just
Yeah.
with voting, but like signing petitions, public
Hmm.
hearings,
Yeah.
calling your councilman. You hold a lot more weight because of it is such a easy thing to do. I believe like yeah, like going back to that story, we got those 7 people, but it was like a 30-second process. It was like literally
Yeah.
bye. Like I remember one person was like, "I gotta go," and you're like, "Fill this out," and they like, "All right, bye," and
Yeah.
that's it. Here's your receipt. You're a registered voter.
1 through
Congratulations.
10, like you're just filling out 1 through 10. It's all your information from the top of your head: first and last name, address, zip, date of birth, last 4 of your social or your driver's license. Like, it's super easy. I turn it in, like we do the grunt work for you and get it turned in and whatnot. And then you'll get your card mailed to you, and then you have the power to change laws.
Yeah, I mean, quite literally, yeah. Not,
Yeah.
and just you'll actually, yeah, because when you look at it, it's like a person who's not registered to vote and is complaining, and they try to make tangible change versus a person who is registered to vote. The
Right.
person they're trying to appeal to, which is the congressman of their district, is going to want to listen more to what the registered voter has to say over the person who is not registered because in their mind they're thinking about re-election. They're thinking about, okay, what can I do to appease my voters? And if the person's not voting, their cause could be righteous, their cause could be good, their cause could
Right.
be wonderful and something that the community can back behind. But if no one is registered to vote, the person who actually has the power to change things, which is the councilman, is not going to
Right.
care. They're going to be like, "What is my voter? Oh, my voter cares about, uh, like, caring about sidewalks, and we're just going to focus on the sidewalks and screw the parks, screw the roads, screw this. We're just focusing on sidewalks." And you're like, "My tires are being ruined." You know,
Yeah.
it's one of those things where it's like being a registered voter holds a lot of weight, a lot more weight than I thought until, I actually applied my registration status. When I started calling councilmen, it was just like, "Oh my goodness, we're so happy to hear you. Can we. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, not enough people are participating locally. And I heard Miss Latasha Brown of Black Voters Matter. I love the way that she put it. I'm a jock, so any sports reference I'm going to really appreciate. It's always going to resonate with me. But she was saying how, like, if you're in a game, if you're playing basketball, and everybody else is, not everybody else, but your top players have fouled out. You get the ball. There's like zero point 0.0 seconds on the clock. Are you going to shoot it? Or are you just going to not participate? Like, you're going to shoot it. Like, you're going to do what you got to do, and that's with voting, like, even if the candidates aren't your favorite or whatever the case may be, get informed and take the shot. You got to.
So like we got important registration and all that other stuff like that. I think this would be a good time to talk about like the alternatives of voting. And before I start that conversation, because obviously I did my little quick last minute hoop-a-da-da, but
Mm-hmm.
what alternatives do you know about, Val, or what do you think? What alternatives would you like to talk about?
What do you mean alternatives of voting? Like the ranked choice voting conversation?
Yeah, so there's ranked choice voting, which is also known as the runoff voting. Like the
Mm-hmm.
ones I got are like first past the post, which is populist voting, which is everyone gets one vote and we see what the majority wants. There's ranked choice voting, which is runoff voting. There's mixed member proportional voting, and then there's the single transferable vote. And those are the four ones that I vaguely know about. I don't know how familiar you are with these. I can do like a brief synopsis of some of these, but I think ranked
Please.
choice voting is probably going to be the one we're going to be focusing on. Um,
Definitely.
but okay, so there's a lot of different voting, and there's also two voting methods I'm not talking about because I'm not well versed in them. But I'll briefly talk about them right here. So there's state voting. State voting is each state within the United States gets one vote. So Texas gets one vote, California gets one vote, New York gets one vote, so on and so forth. There are issues with this one, but again, I don't want to get too into it. But basically, each state gets one vote. You tally up all 50 votes. Whichever party from each vote wins.
Terrible idea.
Terrible idea.
Mhm.
Because yeah, like obviously the first big collapse in that is population. California and Texas have huge populations. Smaller states have very tiny populations, so it wouldn't be quite
Right.
representative. But it is alternative voting. The other is, I think, what was it called? Single transferable voting, and this is kind of vaguely, but basically, it's keeping local politics in play while understanding that you can, while trying to create massive representation through the regular political system, and trying to avoid gerrymandering. It's kind of hard to do, but I don't know too much about it, so I don't want to get too into it. But I know that's another alternative. And then there's a funny one that I thought was really weird. They had one where it's called proportional voting or something like that, or populist voting. Basically, a single person can put as many ballots as they want. So like everyone can do this. They can just write in over and over and over and over
Oh
again
my
and put as
God.
many. And I'm like, this is a legit thing. Apparently, the idea behind it is you can put as many ballots because it gives the political candidate an idea of like, oh, they really want this job? Yes. Do they really think like I put in 10 votes to this because this is how much I support this guy. Or
Oh my
and
God.
it was a very
That's
silly
exhausting.
silly thing I read, and I was just like, that sounds terrible. But I
It sounds
thought it was funny because
awful.
it is a voting idea and it is on the website, and I was just like,
Oh my God.
okay, apparently it's popular enough to get thrown in there, but it's a
Yeah.
terrible idea.
Super bad.
But so I want to I'll talk briefly about first past the post, and I guess for these ones that you're not too familiar with, I'll get your opinion on what you think about them.
Right.
So first past the post is actually a very popular thing. It's also called the populist vote. Basically, this is everybody. Every single person gets one vote. Like, no matter what, we all get one vote, right? We go into the election, we vote, and we see what the turnout is. This is popular because a lot of people think that it will create diversity, like it'll lift third party candidates. Because if everyone supports this candidate and this candidate, And this candidate, we actually get to see what everyone actually wants to vote. Everyone gets one vote, but they can vote for whoever they want. And it avoids the electoral college and stuff like that. So we're not putting it up to like random elected officials, but rather we are putting it on ourselves to vote for who we want. So there's agency over that, and that's good and all. The downsides to this is it creates something called minority rule, which means that, like, so for example, let's say we do a populist vote, right? And we have like 5 candidates. First candidate gets 9%, second candidate gets 10%, the third candidate gets 25%, and these may not mathematically add up, but I'm not doing math right now.
Mm-hmm.
The fourth candidate gets like 30%, and the fourth candidate gets 40%, right? Well, the fourth candidate wins, but they only have 40%. 60% of people didn't want that candidate at all. So it creates this where the minority is now in charge of everything, which is no different than the electoral colleges right now, where we
Right.
have Republican and Democrat. But like, if we look at it from like if people's individual opinions, you'll find out that we're like a pretty moderate country. Like we tend to lean towards a moderate centrist viewpoint, with a lot of libertarians and social democrats in the mix. It creates this kind of like centralist, like that's what we all kind of like lean towards. But the problem is we have a two-party system, which is the other downside of first past the post, which is when this happens, there's something called strategic voting happens. And this inevitably creates a two-party system under first past the post, because when you get populist votes and your third-party candidates keep getting defeated, you start wanting to go for whoever you believe is the winner. And eventually it's just going to start turning into this person versus that person.
Yeah.
And this is actually based on mathematical statistics. So they've run data analysis and systems, and they've actually seen that statistically this will inevitably happen no matter what. There's no way to avoid it.
Yeah.
And the reason you can't avoid it is because of something called the spoiler effect. Now, the spoiler effect is when what we currently have right now under the Electoral College, but is also something we have with first past the post, which is, say that we have our two-party system, right? We throw in a third party. So, like, a libertarian decides to run, right? They've gained traction. They put money behind it. They got, like, a lot of people want change, right? Well, what happens is under first past the post and under the Electoral College is the third candidate will actually damage one of the two major parties. And this is the worst case scenario in both of these two systems. Because what happens is the third candidate party will eliminate the other party's chances. So say libertarians are leaning more towards Republican, right? Well, they'll hurt Republicans by voting, and the Democrats will then win.
Yeah.
And this is a problem that we often see, and that often we complain about, like, oh, why are you voting third party? You're just going to damage everything. This is the spoiler effect in action. And this is one of the major problems of both the Electoral College and first past the post. Now, I'm going to save ranked choice voting for last, because obviously that's what we're going to be, talking about. But thoughts on anything I just said?
No, I think you're right. Like, I don't think I have much to expand upon, but like, no, you're right. Because especially what 2016 taught us, it was like, yeah, pretty much any vote that was not for Hillary was for Donald Trump. And everyone was like, let's just see what happens. And everybody almost fucking died. So
actually, people did die. Let's be real. I believe the count is at 1 million. So,
yes,
2 million now? Yeah, 2 million. 2 million people died, quite literally. That is not a laughing matter, but I'm smiling because if I don't laugh, I'll cry.
Agreed. Yes. Like the irony, like, of that being a saying, but it's like, oh no, that really happened. And then half of the country still voted for him.
Information, man. Information. But so the other one is something called mixed member proportional voting. This is basically this is like the best way to represent council. So this is percentage voting. Basically, say you have 5 political parties, right? And let's see if I can divide this actually by 100. So I'm going to try and do math. Um, so let's say the first percent is 15%, right? The next one they get 30%. We got next one is 20%. Then we got 15% again, and then we got another, and then we got 20%, right? Well, the way proportional voting would be is like, so all these people voted and these parties win. So we're going to represent council this way. So basically, for the people that, like, out of the 10 that we got, or the 100% pie little thing, we have 10 candidates, right? So for those 15%, we'll say they get like 2 candidates. For the other 15%, we'll say they get 2 candidates. And then for the 30%, they get 3 candidates. For the 20%, they get 2 candidates. And for the other 30%, they get 3 candidates. And this is what our government will look at. This is what something called, this is what creates political diversity, because then you have all of these 5 political parties actually representing what the country is. In addition to all of that, this actually prevents gerrymandering. So if gerrymandering happens, it actually has no effect on this process at all. So people can slice up their district however they like. It will have no bearing on the political vote, because the political vote is reflecting the voice of the people, not the way the cuts were made.
Right.
So if a percentage of people vote this and this, they're just going off basically the percent of what voted. This also creates the political diversity and encourages third, fourth, and fifth parties to actually vote, because what will happen is it will push those parties forward into the limelight, and now people will actually get to, like, oh yeah, I want to consider this, I want to consider that, and we can actually vote with a more authentic feeling and not have to worry about what's going on. And there are downsides though. There are a few downsides. One, this is the British method. So I talked to my friend in England, and this is the method they use over in the UK. So this is their voting system. The way it works, though, is the political parties actually choose the candidate. So we're not actually choosing the candidate. So the Democratic Party will have something called the official list. And the official list will be ranked between 5 members. So there's the first, second, third, fourth, and fifth member, right? So the political party has full control over who is at the top of that list. And if the Democratic Party decides, I don't really like this person, it doesn't matter how the people feel.
Right.
They're not playing fair with, like, if the DNC is like, oh, I don't like Bernie Sanders, I'm going to go Hillary. Well, Hillary will be the nominee. Unless Hillary does something, then they're like, oh, well, here's Matthew, and we'll put Matthew in instead. So they get to actually choose who the candidate is. So you're voting based off of a party, not an individual person. So you have to keep that in mind. But it does have a lot of upsides. Obviously avoiding gerrymandering is nice. It kills minority rule. The spoiler effect doesn't exist in this. Yes, BB boy. Oh my goodness. You have to chill, buddy. You have to chill. Kylo wants to be part of the attention. Yeah, but it allows political diversity. It kills minority rule. It kills gerrymandering. It kills the spoiler effect. So it has a lot of upsides to it. The only thing is yeah, you would be voting for essentially a party. You would be like, I am a Republican or I am a Democrat. And that can get into team politics but it would be very interesting, because it'd be very interesting to see, like, oh, I don't want to be a Republican, I'm a Democrat. Like, people will just party switch on the flim just because of whoever the top candidate is. But yeah, it is one of those things where it's like, you got it. Like, none of the systems, by the way, that we're talking about are gonna be perfect. But
right, yeah,
but yeah, what thoughts on that? Because I feel like that's a very glaring elephant in the room.
yeah. It was complicated, and I was like, okay, but yeah. Then when it was the that they end up picking the candidate, like, despite, like, who the people are favoring, and then I was like, well, nothing is perfect. Like, I literally thought that, like, while I was like, what do about this, like, even before you said it, I was like, well, how is that better or worse than what we're dealing with now? Yeah, it sounds complicated from the start, but I mean, it's working over there. Like, I don't feel like things are as foolish over there. They're not shooting and killing each other every GD day like we are over here.
That's true.
So I feel like they're definitely onto something, and I will not shit on that one.
No, it's okay. I mean, it's not that bad. Like, so like the way it was explained and from what I can find is, so you have like a list of like basically 5 or 10 people. You have this long list, right? So the Democratic Party can have like, let's say, 100 people, 100 official members of the Democratic Party. These are the people that represent that party, right? And so basically they rank them from 1 to 100. And so, say there is like 100 spots on Congress, right? And so, like, if the Democratic Party won 100% of that, all 100 of those people would be on the seat, right? Um, but say only 50 of them, like 50% of the country wanted to go Democratic, then only the first 50 would actually be representing us. And so that can create diversity because it's voted within the Democratic Party who's on that list, and they can swap at whim. But you're still voting for the party and those peoples who have those ideals. It's just not guaranteed that they're all going to be put into office, if that makes sense. And so, like, you can have, like, it's same thing with the Republican Party, Green Party, Purple Party, Independent Party, Libertarian Party, and so on and so forth. Like, they will have their own list of 100, and if they only get, like, 30%, then those first 30. If they only get 5%, then those first 5 members get thrown in there, and so on and so forth for every single party. And it does give an actual good representation, but it does have that glaring issue where, like, the people don't actually get to choose who the official is. The party does.
Right. Yeah.
And then now we get into the bread and butter. Ranked choice voting, also known as runoff voting. I'm going to let you start this one because I feel like I assume you did the research on this.
Yeah, I researched ranked choice voting. It's something that I had saw Eric Velasquez first post about. He ran for, I believe, a House seat in San Antonio. Unfortunately, he didn't get it, but I learned a lot from him. But yeah, ranked choice voting was actually recently adopted by Maine. And I think it would have been very helpful, very, very helpful, especially in our last primary process, like with that huge
70 people.
Field. It was 70?
No, but like, the fact that you could take that as reality is like...
Almost.
Yeah. I believe it was like 30 people, if I'm being realistic. 25 to 30.
It was so many, but it was like super diverse, you know, like with Buttigieg, with Yang, with Warren, with Kamala, with everybody who was on there. And I feel like we really missed out on like an opportunity with ranked choice voting there, you know. Did Beto run for president? Yeah, low-key.
Yeah. Bloomberg was Bloomberg was the Jeb of the Democratic Party.
Yeah, so ranked choice voting, it gives you even a more positive campaigning experience as well. So instead of all the mudslinging, people are like, hey, if it's not me, then vote for my boy Yang or vote for my girl Liz over here. Like, you know, and that's what I really liked about in my research with the ranked choice voting. I really like that aspect about it, with a more positive stance that you can take and just, you know, giving people options. And then when you do more research and realize where ranked choice voting could have saved us in 2000 and it could have saved us in 2016. I have this pulled up from Time. If a ranked choice voting system had been in place in Michigan, then Clinton, not Trump, may have won that state. Because neither candidate received a majority of the Michigan vote, ranked choice voting would have come into play. And if we can assume that most Stein voters would have chosen Clinton as their second choice, the former Secretary of State would have won, according to Trump won Michigan by 10,700. Stein received more than 51 votes. She outdid them. Actually, Jill Stein outdid them in 12 states in 2016. So things just would have been way different. And of course, it's like a, an I wish, a dream, type scenario. Yeah. But, you just wonder what could have happened with this, system that seems sensible, humane, modern. Like our system is so antiquated and just crusty. I hate it. I really do.
I mean, I agree. I don't think there's a person alive who likes the Electoral College on any spectrum. Like, I think
Right.
it's weird that it's still around because it's such a bipartisan issue to get rid of it, yet
Right.
no one wants that on their record. It's like
Right.
the way I equate it to is like in the scientific community, no one wants to prove it. No one wants to prove Albert Einstein wrong. They're like,
Makes
we're doing all
sense.
this research, but no one wants to be the guy that's like, yeah, we just
Right.
proved all of this irrelevant, and now we're on to
Sorry
something
to burst your bubble, but Einstein wouldn't chill.
else. You thought he was a genius? He was a basic bitch.
Right.
Oh, if anyone watches Always Sunny in Philadelphia, I hope you got that and appreciated it. If not, then fuck off.
That was giving me Charlie. Was that a Charlie line?
That was a Mac line.
Mac.
It was
That
the
was
so
it.
Mac was doing the religion versus science debate, and he's all like,
Mm.
everyone thought Aristotle was the shit, but it turns out he was a basic bitch. And then Isaac Newton came on, and then he proved him wrong, and he was a basic bitch. And he just goes on and on. Then Albert Einstein slapped Isaac Newton with his dick, and guess what? Basic bitch. That's not. I don't know if that's actually the quote, but I remember he says "basic bitch" a
Close
lot, and
enough,
I
I'm
love it.
sure. I'm sure. But yeah, I don't know if I explained ranked choice voting well enough, but now I think it's a great idea. Like I said, it was adopted by Maine. We are currently using the plurality system. That's what the
Mhm.
system we're currently using is called. But yeah, in 2016, Trump nor Clinton received less. They received less than 50% of votes in 12 states. So it's just we're only left to wonder how things could have been different. But here we are.
I mean, Maine did it, so I don't see why the rest of countries can. Like, this is where it comes down to being registered to vote. You can use your newfound power and be like, "Hey, listen, I
Right.
want ranked choice voting." This is you. You
Right.
appeal to legislators. You appeal to your council, be like, "Hey, I want ranked choice voting. Can we do this for the next election?" Because they're the ones in
Mhm.
charge of that. Um,
Right.
so yeah, so for the research I did, um, ranked choice voting basically boils down to this: you are there's a bunch of candidates running, right? Excuse me. There's a bunch of candidates running, right? From Democratic to Republican to Libertarian to whatever, right? All the candidates run, they all put their candidates forward, right? As many as they can fit. Let's say each party has 30 for whatever fucking reason. Um, they all have 30 candidates. So you basically will do primary voting, right? So we'll be like, okay, we're going to vote for these parties. So you tally from 1 to 30. You're just like, this person, this person, this person, this person, this person. I don't give a shit about the other 25. I'm just voting for these five, whatever. So you put those in. They tally them up. What ends up happening is the people that lose, actually the people who put in their second choice, their votes go to those people, and it keeps doing that until majority wins. So
Mhm.
they'll keep doing that, and eventually they'll be like, okay, Samantha wins over Bob, and so
Yeah.
they go on to the general election, right? Come the general
Mhm.
election, now we have, like, let's say all the parties are still involved, right? We did the primaries for each party. Now each party, let's say there's 5 parties now voted, right? You have the Republicans, the Libertarians, the Democratic Socialists, the Green Party, and the Democratic Party, right? You have these 5 parties. Let's say Green Party, Democratic Socialist, and Democrats are all like closely aligned with one another pretty much. Libertarians can sometimes hop over to the Democratic Party, but they won't touch the Democratic Socialists and they won't touch the Green Party. And then you have the
Mhm.
Republican Party, who somewhat supports the Libertarian. In our current system, the Democratic Party and the Republican Party are the most known and
Yeah.
familiar. So we'll say
Mhm.
they get a pretty good 30% on both of them, right? Let's say the Libertarian Party and the Green Party start to drop out. The Libertarians split their vote between the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. The Green Party puts all of their votes into the Democratic Socialist Party,
Mhm.
right? So now we have the Democratic Socialists, the Republican Party, and the Democratic Party. These three parties are now up it for grabs, and we'll say like the Democratic Party got 41%, while the other two, the Republican and the Republican and the Democratic Party got 30%, and the Democratic Socialist Party got 40%. Well, then the Democratic Socialist elect would become president, not the Democratic or the Republican. I'm sorry,
Mhm.
that was explained way more confusingly than I intended. But essentially, what it does is it creates political diversity, um,
Yes.
and it allows third parties to like actually flourish and have a chance of winning.
Right. Yeah,
Downsides.
let me see the quote in here. Yeah, it would definitely bring more diverse candidates into the mix. I feel like women and people of color would have a better chance because people are going to kind of choose like that. Like, okay, if it can't be this one, it'll be my girl. This one, it'll be my so and so. This one,
Mm-hmm.
So I'm excited to see how it goes in Maine because I've heard per this Time article, some other states are going to be testing it out. They were supposed to be testing it out in the 2020 presidential election. Let me see when this was written. Because if it
Yeah.
was pre-Rona, I'm certain
Yeah, I was
we
gonna
didn't.
say Maine already does that. Maine already has ranked choice voting 100%. If you go to actually votechange.org, it's an actual website that gives you actual tools and resources to um, create voting change within your municipality. So you can
Mhm.
actually go to your like San Antonio or whatever city you live in and actually say, "Hey, I want this," and they will tell you how you can make this change. It also gives you the voting methods in each state and each city. For example, Maine is the only state that has 100% across all elections ranked choice voting.
Yeah.
No other state has that. San Antonio only has ranked choice voting when it comes to, I think, either local elections or primary elections. I forgot which. But everything else is done by the Electoral College. Certain cities have ranked choice voting for the general election, but not any of the primaries, and so on and so forth. So each city and each state is different. This is when we get into like actually contacting your local government and saying, "Hey, you should try and do this, or that." In addition, but ranked choice voting, I do want to say, is not perfect. It doesn't avoid gerrymandering. Gerrymandering can still affect ranked choice voting because if they divvy it up a certain way, it's still affected by the electoral college. And it is susceptible even to ranked choice voting or gerrymandering because if you have like five people who want to be Democratic Socialist, but you have six people who want to be Republican, and you have three people who want to be Democrat, those six people are still going to be in charge of that area. They're still going to be the majority vote, and minority rule will still take place. The two it can lead to two party voting. So even though ranked choice voting gives diversity and chance, it still can end up being a two party vote system.
Yeah.
Not always. Sometimes a third party candidate will substitute in for one of the parties, but inevitably it can end up being two party voting. Not to say that it will always be that or that it will turn into that, but the opportunity is still there, and they it doesn't give necessarily proportional representation. So, uh, say for example, the Democratic Socialist wins and they got the majority vote, but when they started off, only 30% of the country wanted to be Democratic Socialist, and just because it worked out that way because of its alignment, it's still minority rule is still there. But ranked choice voting does not have something called the spoiler effect, which
Mhm.
is very, very bad. So the spoiler effect means that like if a third party candidate or some other candidate runs, it actually taints another candidate's ability. And this just doesn't happen under ranked choice voting. There's no way to spoil another candidate because everyone is choosing the order of
Yeah.
how they want people to run. So that's always a positive.
Yeah, so this article I looked at was from November 2019, and it
Nice.
says in addition to Maine, which has adopted the system statewide, several states are experimenting, which are Alaska, Hawaii, Kansas, and Wyoming. They were
Mhm.
planning on using it in the 2020 primaries,
Oh,
and Nevada
nice.
planned on using it for early voters in the 2020 caucuses. But we all know what happened in 2020.
Yeah, this is
Time,
we're in the future now.
yeah, so I don't think that should happen due to, the panorama that we're in currently. So I know it's pandemic. I'm just being silly,
No,
y'all.
I
Please
love
don't
it. I
think I'm
love
ridiculous.
panorama. I want to use that. We're in a panorama constantly.
Take it seriously. We're in a panorama. You know.
But yeah, but that is one of the things. It also not ranked choice voting is a lot more. I know I explained it poorly, but it is a lot. It is an easier method to wrap your head around, and in
Yeah.
addition, it is the most popular alternative method right now because a lot of the other methods, while they are cool, they can be a little bit confusing or they're not as digestible because they haven't been talked about a whole lot.
Right.
But I would love to see people try and just throw these ideas out and push them forward. Um, so, real quick, because I don't know how much we have to say about alternative voting, other than that, we should encourage it and please call your council and Congress
Right.
and people and like, come on
We
now.
definitely need to modernize our voting system. So yes. If any of these sounded good, call your local city council person and be like, hey, why aren't we doing this? Why the hell not? What's holding us back?
And I will post in the Discord a lot of some videos. CPG Gray did a whole playlist on a lot of this stuff, and he did thorough research, which was awesome on my part because it made it easier for me to do research because I could just look at his sources and just double fact check those. Um, but I will post the playlist so people can watch and see what we're talking about, as well as this will be posted later on YouTube, albeit edited because we're obviously talking with the chat, we're goofing off, and I am making a fool of myself by tripping over my own words. Uh, but yeah, but having said that, we're going to get into something a little bit more serious voter fraud and voter suppression. So again, I don't know how much research you did on this. I know that there was a study done by Columbia University, and I'm just jumping into voter fraud. But I know there was a study done by Columbia University which they actually tried to validate 2016's claims of voter fraud, and they literally found zero, zero
Yeah.
percent. They actually went back. So after the election was won and all this stuff like that, the study was published in 2018. They looked back at all of the data samples, all of the stuff like that. They did a rigorous set from 2016 to 2018, so the study took 2 years, and they found 0% of voter fraud, and none of the allegations by Donald Trump were found to be true. They just didn't happen. Like not their voter fraud is such a rare occurrence, and they said that even like the errors that they did find that we did find in this election as well, where I believe it was 1,000 ballots got just not counted, like they were just like on the side and they're like, oh, we forgot to count these, had no bearing effect and wouldn't have swayed the election one way or another. Because when you get into 75 million votes per candidate, that's 150 million votes. 1,000 is itty bitty tiny. It makes no difference. And in this study, they only found that it was 100. 100 of the votes got miscounted, but it wasn't anything. 100 wouldn't doesn't even touch local level politics, you know. So like, so yeah, so that's what I found is like in most cases, voter fraud just doesn't exist, and cases that have found voter fraud is like one or two, and they're from like the 1800s.
Yeah, I think I saw some stat, about your chances of getting struck by lightning or winning the lottery is greater than voter fraud. So there's that.
I found this random statistic. The
Who knew?
probability of voter fraud is just so minuscule, you might as well just go stand out with a lightning rod in the middle of
It.
a mountain of a
And if you
thunderstorm and just
survive,
hope you get shocked.
get a lottery ticket. Your day. Yeah, I think, with this current administration and the way they've handled every single thing, and the way they entered and the way that they're exiting, I'm not surprised about these voter fraud claims and, just trying to stir doubt and confusion, to a base that'll just believe anything that he says, which is just, for us, for people with sense, it's like, literally, what's wrong with y'all? Like, but I mean,
It's hard because it's like voter fraud is such a serious thing, and yet at the
yes,
same time it doesn't happen
right,
like at all. And it's like this fear that is logically it makes sense. You don't want a rigged election, but
right,
the things we're going to get into are how elections are actually rigged in a little bit. But like no one wants a rigged election. Everyone wants
right,
their candidate to win and stuff like that. But the thing is voter fraud just isn't a thing. It like
right,
numerous studies have been done on it. People have dug up. It's been such a talk. It's talked about almost every single election. Like every single
yeah,
election, it's because it's a argument that sounds logical on the surface. On paper, you're like, yeah, what the heck? I don't want dead people voting. I don't want the. But
right,
in practice, it is so tedious, time consuming, and not worth the effort. And with the stigma with voting in America, no, I'm not gonna put the effort in to do that. I don't think anyone is. Someone
right.
driving across state lines just to vote, that is preposterous. And
Yeah,
there
it's completely foolish.
mhm. And there is two cases. So there was two cases of legit voter fraud. And it was one of the cases was done by accident. And it was done by a Republican voting for Trump. They were trying to vote for their mother. The second case was from another Trump supporter, and he tried to cast two ballots he tried to cast two ballots, one under an alias, one under his own name, and he got caught, arrested, and thrown in jail for voter fraud. Two white dudes, and the one that did it by mistake because he was trying to vote for his mother he got acquitted because it was it was just kind of like, oh, I didn't know I couldn't do that. My mother's disabled. His mother was disabled, so they just like were like, hey, you can't do that. Boom, he was good.
Hmm.
But like the other one actually got caught. It was his own action, and it was just the craziest thing because it was like the very people who are claiming it exists are the people who are doing it, and that was just mind blowing to research that. Please look up voter fraud. It's very funny. I find it funny because I just find irony hilarious. But those are the only two cases of actual voter fraud during the 2020 election. Every other case was found to be non-existent, and a lot of the cases and claims have been shot down and dropped immediately
Yeah,
because
because they're
none
not
of the
even using the same verbiage that they're
yeah
using, in the media. They're not saying that same shit in court because they cannot lie in court.
they can't lie. They actually have to have some sort of evidence.
Right.
So
And they
if
have
they just say, "Oh, I experienced voter fraud," it's like, okay, but where, how, like where? And if you can't give a name, if you can't give a description, if you can't
right,
give any type of incidence, time, date, anything, they're being pretty flexible. They're like anything. If you can't give them anything, then it's just gonna be dropped. There was like one person who had like voted and they thought it was their husband, but it was just her. And they're like, "No, my husband's dead, and
Yeah, I
that's
saw
my
that.
name." And they
Yeah,
were because they were like, "How could you voted for?" It's like, "No, he's dead. That's my name. Does my
yeah.
name sound like a man?" Because
She's like super old school and
yeah,
like legit when they're like Mr. and Mrs. So and so. She took that, like, which,
she's like, "My
my
name
heart,
is Donnie," and it's like,
yeah.
we thought Donnie was a man. It's like, no, it happens though, because Donnie is also. I mean, I associate it with a man's name, but like,
Yeah, usually. But yeah, I saw that story and I was like, she is very old school, but
yeah,
no voter
just
fraud there. Still got to try harder than
this
that.
96-year-old lady just coming up and just be like, "Why are you in my house?" That
She
was
was so
a very
confused.
interesting interview. Yeah, look that one up as well. That one's very interesting. Um, but yeah, so going from voter fraud, since we're talking about rigged elections, voter suppression and gerrymandering. These are actually ways that elections are rigged or pushed to a certain agenda or candidacy. And in the last conversation we had, we found out, well, I found out, you informed me, the first polls to get closed are the ones with low income areas if there's not enough poll workers. I did not know that. I was unaware of that. Actually, we tried to be poll workers until this came around. But poll workers filled up that fast. I was actually very shocked about how many people went to go become poll workers.
Yeah. Yeah. So I worked the runoff election in July for the first time. And then I also did work on election day. I worked half a day. And yes, I did not witness it. So on the day of election, so with the way things happened, especially in 2020 with COVID, Facebook and Instagram made you think that you were registered to vote online. And in Texas, that is not a thing. You cannot register to vote online. And so people would go through the process, but without realizing they were supposed to print it out and then take it and go turn it back in. So at my site on election day, actually, we dealt with a few people, I would say like at least five, who thought they were registered to vote and they actually weren't. And it's quite a process to do. Oh my God, a provisional ballot. It's quite a process to do it per the election judge at the site. And that evening, I was getting calls from some of my radical registrars about voter suppression happening at the polls, like right in front of their faces with that exact situation. So, polls close at 7 o'clock, but if you are in line, you still get to vote. Like if you're in line, you get to vote. If you're in the building, you get to vote. But if there's not a line and you're in the building, you get to vote. But definitely if you're in line, you stay and you get to vote. But from what I was hearing was that somebody had came in late, like a few minutes to closing. It was like they were texting me. It was like 6:40, and this election judge just did not want to go through
Yeah,
the
I remember.
process of a provisional ballot. And so I was calling the elections office because the judge was lying and saying the elections office was telling her not to. So I was even intervening and throwing myself in there. And then thankfully, we actually got confirmation that that vote was counted, and us fighting for that person's vote to count actually worked and it mattered. So I was super proud of that. But voter suppression it's everywhere, and we have to be, as citizens, and we have to be knowledgeable, and we have to spread our knowledge to people who may not know any better,
Mm-hmm.
especially when it comes to voter suppression, because you go through so much to get to the day to get to go submit your vote, and then for something to happen out of your control or something, we gotta know before we get there and stop it.
Yeah. And I believe when we were doing that, because I remember that story, I remember like hearing about it, but also like I remember like AT&T actually made news because they actually enacted, they actually blocked First Amendment rights, and they blocked. I remember I was actually a part of that, and we actually had to call the Spurs owner, the person who owned the AT&T Center and the Spurs, and they had to actually come down, and we had to call the elections office, and they had to come down and tell the people, the judge at the AT&T center, that what they were doing was illegal, and they got in trouble. I don't know if they got fined or not, but all I know is literally the next day, all of a sudden we were allowed to be there. And like it was crazy because like they actually, I guess whatever happened, they literally put us all the way in the front where we had our own
Yeah.
booth and area and everything. Because I remember beforehand they were trying to put us in the middle of the street, and I
Hmm.
know going to like certain election polls and stuff like that, they were like, "Oh, we're gonna cut it hard here, and no one is gonna," and there were people like, no, there's a line, there's people here and stuff like that. So it was very interesting to see how, like, because you have, and it's interesting because you look at the electoral judges, and again, I'm not trying to profile or anything like that. I'm just literally spitting facts off my experiences. Again, I don't know how other states are. I don't know how other cities are. These are my experiences. I was at 24 different polls, and at these polls, they were all old white people. Not gonna lie, like there was like, bless every single poll worker that worked there, because there was some really cool poll workers that I got to meet that were super cool, super nice. There were some young poll workers. There was some diverse poll workers there, and they were working with me 100%. And honestly, some of the old white people, they were super chill and cool too. Like, I'm not trying to badmouth them, but there were some of them who were a little bit ornery or who were a little bit stingent in their ways. And the way they have their system set up, we actually had to get the bare elections. We actually got to meet the Treasury of State actually at one of the Yeah, he was actually a super cool dude. Like, we talked about the petition, and he was all about it. But he was just checking polls, and he went to go check on the judge where I was at. And that it was just very interesting because the way he had it set up was people had to like go out in the middle of the street, and that was
Hmm.
dangerous. You could get hit
Right.
by cars. There were some cars. I almost got hit by a car. So like they had to change that, and they had two different lines at different posts and stuff like that. It was super weird. But they came down, and they were on check and on point with everybody. But yeah, like voter suppression is like in the most discreet ways, at least from what the last conversation we have and from what I've seen. It's not necessarily, oh, you're this, so you're not allowed to vote. It's more like, oh, so we only have these many workers, so we're actually going to close the low income areas first.
Right.
It's like, well, why close any location at all? Or if you're going to close the
Right.
location, why not have centralized locations? It's like, it would make more sense to, instead of closing out a whole entire side of a city, it'd be like, well, these are the 5 locations we have, and this is the happy medium that everyone can get to, and whoever can get to it can get to it. That way it's fair for all, not just for one. um, or like the ability to oh, what was it? What was that one guy's story that day when we were getting all 7 registered people to vote? There was the one guy who was a felon, and he was told, right
Oh,
at
yeah.
as he got out of jail, he finished all his paperwork, he got all his things paid off, he was in the clear 100%. And the people at the jail, and the people who, when he was set off, they told him, you are not, they just flat out told him he's not human, he does not have the right to vote. He was
Yeah,
saying
I
that like
think
he
so.
never even
Never be able
bothered.
to vote or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Like he was told, he's all like, I didn't even know I can do this. I was told I couldn't do this. I was told I did, like, I lost everything. Like, that's
Yeah.
basically, that was his mentality. He didn't have the right to vote, he didn't have the right to register, he didn't have the right to participate in society anymore. And at
Right.
least for the city that we live in, and for the state in Texas, that's just not true. Like, we got him registered to vote. We have people who are registered to vote who have done what they need to do. And it's so sad just to hear stories like that, where like the people who are, when he leaves the jail, or when he's leaving, he's got all his paperwork, and he's done with the court, to hear those people just tell him that he's no longer a human being, like,
Yeah.
it was sad. And there was and that was a common story. And then there was one person who legit was just like, I'm just trying to change my life. I know I don't have a life ahead of me. And flat out told him, I was like, no, you're wrong. One, you're allowed to vote. Two, you're allowed to participate in society. And the man literally broke down in tears. Like this was a, I used to be part of a gang. I used to do a lot of bad stuff, and I feel terrible about the things I do. And now I'm just trying to take care of the community at large, breaking down in tears. This guy had scars, tattoos, mean mugging face. Not gonna lie, but he was broken down in tears and just could not believe that. Like, all I said was that, dude, you're human. You did your paperwork. You paid your things. I just told him a basic fact, and it was like I gave him his whole life. It was just such a weird moment because it's just like people are told that. People are told they're not human anymore. People are treated as if they're not human anymore.
It's done by design though. Like they do it to just beat those guys down and then just, even when they have their rights restored to never use it. So those are votes that, that the opposition will never get. So it's definitely done by design, but we just have to keep encouraging people and keep letting them know how much power and privilege is in getting registered to vote. And I cannot wait to get you deputized so you can, get these people registered yourself.
I know. Speaking of getting deputized, so there's a lot of people I wanted to register today. We're doing an event. We're January 10th, right?
Yeah.
Now, would you like to talk about? Well, let's talk about two things. Talk about being a deputy registrar, being part of like radical registrars and stuff like that, and then let's talk about the event itself and how someone can become deputized.
Right. So Radical Registrars has been just one of the biggest gifts that I got out of 2020. I've met so many amazing people. And yeah, we're just a group of deputy registrars who get as many people registered to vote, get them civically engaged. And then we also do the homework for you when it comes to the election. So we put together a candidate guide with tips, with locations, but also with candidate information. So you can see who you're voting for and know what they look like and know what they stand for. And we just put it all in one place for you because I am 33 and, for a for a long time, and my voting, career, for lack of a better word, I would just, be like, okay, I know who I'm voting for. But then you go in there and you see this big ass ballot and you're like, damn. And then you leave like, what did I even do? Like you leave wishing you knew better. And so we put that guide together for you and encourage you to print it out. We encourage you to take a sheet of paper with you, write down your answers, write down your candidates, write down who you're wanting to vote for. You cannot have your phone while you're voting. And so that's something important to know. Like you don't want to get kicked out and not have your vote count because you were researching candidates on your cell phone. You want to go in there informed and ready to go. And we were talking about these election judges, I try to keep Radical Registrars Facebook and Instagram updated with just important voter information. So when you're going to go vote, you don't feel intimidated by that older election judge, who's trying to intimidate you or trying to make you feel like you're doing something wrong and not being that welcoming to you. So we want, to keep you educated and informed on exactly, you're not doing anything wrong by standing there and looking at this sheet or whatever, we want to keep you informed. So this Sunday, January 10th, I'm actually going to do 2 classes, one at 9 a.m. for my Fix SAPD fam to get them deputized, and then one at 11 a.m. for the rest of my Radical Registrars. But there is a link in the bio, in my bio, and in the Radical Registrars at Radical_Registrars, SATX on Instagram. And you can go RSVP for the event there so I can get your email to send you the Zoom link. And then what I want you to do is print out the, I want you to print out the exam, the Volunteer Deputy Registrar exam. I have the key, I have the answers. It's an open book test, so you would be doing this on your own in the elections department. If you were to do it on your own, they would give you the test and they would give you some notes and you would sit there and go through it. But we will give you the answers, go through the answers, tell you why they are what they are, and then give you tips and best practices on how to get people registered to vote and what's how we've been successful in our efforts. And then if you want to join and be officially rad, we would love to have you on board. We're just, you know, a little community. We get people registered to vote. We have shirts. We keep the people voting informed, and yeah.
You've grown so strong over the years too. There's in numbers as far as what I've seen. In addition, if you're watching this on YouTube, that link will actually be down below, so you can totally just click on it immediately and get it all started, as well as all of Val's Instagram information, all of the Radical Registrar information. Their Facebook and Instagram is down below as well. And all of that stuff, so you guys can totally just sign up. I'm hoping that people are sharing this like wildfire, like they shared my last video, but you know, different format, so you never know. But I hope you guys check that out. My cat is completely going wild right now. He's begging for attention, as you couldn't tell. But yeah, so like, yeah, and being like that, it is a crazy thing, and you'll hear crazy stories, and it's like, I don't know, it's one of those things where like when you hear it, you can't believe it until you hear it like 10, 12, and then you're like, okay, this is just a common story. It may be told with like this little difference or that little difference, but it's like the each personal experience, personal touch boils down to the same thing. They were told they were not human. They were told they were not allowed to vote. Or there's some people who are like, well, why should I even bother registering to vote? Why does my vote matter? Again, you can go back into the other video to figure out why your votes matter. You can also rewind this video, because we just told you there's so many things you could do by being a registered voter. It's more than just voting.
Your brain, like 2020, like this election was so close. Like literally every single vote mattered in this election. Like it was one of the closest. Like these states flipped at the most marginal increment. So like, yes, 2020 should have showed you how extremely important your one vote can be. And we have to keep up this steam. We have to keep up this momentum and get people excited for these local elections. And if y'all ever want weed to be legal, y'all gotta vote people in who want it to be legal too. Don't be.
And that means voting in people in the Senate, because right now, I believe it's is it the Senate, or the Senate passed it, the House is overthrowing it, or is it the other way around?
The House passed it. We're waiting on the Senate. Is it? Yeah, it's one of them. I can't remember.
Here we're talking about local politics, and yet on the federal level, we're just all like, what is the judicial system again?
There's been a lot going on. I tried to take a little brain hiatus. Like the waiting for the election results was like so stressful. Like clutching my crystals, just trying to manifest it. And then like when the results actually came out, like it was such a relief. Like I started my New Year's resolutions that day on November 7th.
That's right. You are so much better at Spanish than I am. And you know what's really sad about that? Is I actually live stream me learning Spanish on here. And while I feel like I've made huge strides in the way that I speak Spanish. When compared to you're like, oh, I just started this in November and it's only been a month, but I already can like carry a full conversation and go into a Mexican restaurant and just speak fluent Spanish to them. And I was like, all right, like
I forgot about our lunch. That was so funny. I walked in, I was like, let me handle this.
I know. So we went to go eat. So we actually went. Me and Val went to go have lunch over at a Mexican restaurant, and. Literally, first she's like, I want to, like on the phone, because she's like, I want to speak Spanish to them. I'm gonna do this. I'm like, we can just order it right now. Like, let's just order it. And she's like, no, we're doing this right now. And I'm like, fuck, okay, shit. So she calls, speaks to them in Spanish, and then we get to the restaurant, and like before we even walk through the door, she stops me. She's like, "Justice, I got this." And then she promptly trips over some. No, I'm just kidding. No, she walks through the door and stuff like that, and just gives me the one last eye, like, "Don't say anything." And I'm like, "Okay." And then she got through it like that, and the staff loved it, and so like it was.
That lady was so sweet. She was very kind and patient with me because on the phone I was like, "Puedo practicar mi español contigo más despacio, más despacio."
Oh my gosh.
If y'all are in San Antonio, so Texas has some of the strictest ID laws when it comes to voting, a part of our voter suppression conversation. And so I have this pulled up and I definitely wanted to say it. So it's very discriminatory, right? Because you could use your concealed carry license to vote, but you can't use a library card or something like that. But San Antonio now has your face on your library card. So if you do not have an ID, or if you know somebody who has an issue on getting a license or a Texas ID, please go to the library and get your library card with your face on it so you can use it to vote, okay? Because it's complete nonsense that a Texas State University ID that is issued by the state of Texas cannot be used to vote, which is complete nonsense. But go get your library card, get your face put on it, and just we're not taking any excuses 2020 and beyond on why we're not voting. So get that ID. Tell somebody else. If you were a felon, if all of your stuff is complete, you get registered to vote. Your voice is one of the most important ones we need to hear, especially locally. May 1st, San Antonio, we are voting for the mayor, city council, and hopefully these 2 chapters will be on the ballot for us to get rid of. So,
Yes, please, please, please vote. If you see this video, share it. And not just San Antonio, but like pay attention to your own local like election. Like whenever your local election is happening, post it, share it. I don't care if you share it in the Discord. I don't care if you tweet me at it. Tweet me at it. I will retweet it. I will support any type of thing that you guys are trying to push through it. Whether I'm for or against it doesn't matter. I'm a person who actually just purely believes in democracy. I feel like even if I'm not for what you're doing it, if you're trying to put it on the ballot to see what people in your region want to see, that's democracy at work. Trying to block something just because you disagree with it doesn't make sense. Because just because I disagree with it doesn't mean I should take that opportunity or that voice away from someone else. I will use my vote to tell you how I feel about it, but I will always give someone the opportunity to put something forward. I mean, that along with what again we were talking about, like there's just so many ways voter suppression can happen, from stopping people or telling people that they don't have the right to vote when they do, from canceling lower income polling areas because there's not enough poll workers. By the way, being a poll worker is great. You can make up to $25 an hour, at least in the state of Texas. $17 an hour for being just a basic poll worker, and $15 an hour for being one of the crew. It's
to be a poll worker.
And you could start at the age of 16, and at least in Texas, you could start at the age of 16. Some other states require you to be 18. And to be a poll worker, you actually get paid. Oh, fun little fact. If you are a registered voter, you get paid more to be a poll worker. That's right. So, like, interesting, when I was applying to be a poll worker, one of the things is if you're not a registered voter, they will actually pay you less than if you were a registered voter, which is very interesting. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but I'm just saying if you want to get paid more, be a registered voter, because obviously that's just another thing they value there. And obviously, if you're being a poll worker and you're not registered to vote, that's kind of like, it's a little sus, bro.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And then voter suppression starts with us, the VDRs, as well, because we can get our deputization stripped for anything. Like they will literally, if everything, you as a VDR, like you have to check that form and make sure that it is perfect, especially in Bexar County, because if it's not, and you turn it in. Even a question, the person could have been born in 1956, okay? If they do not have marked that they will be 18 years of age before the election, they will strip you of your deputization. And so they tried to do this to me last year, like right before the deadline. And I was like, no, like I have events coming up. Like I have to get people registered to vote. If you take this away from me, I am not able to get people registered who otherwise, who knows if they would be able to or not. So it starts with us. So, being a VDR, it's it's kind of work, but it's so rewarding. Like when I tell you, I'm so honored. Every single card that I have turned in that I've had somebody filled out, it's truly an honor for me to get people registered to vote and get them voting informed. So I really appreciate the platform, Justice.
Yeah, no problem. I wanna use this to the best of my abilities. If I have something that can help in any way create positive change, I'm gonna do it. It's just what I do. But like, yeah,
Oh,
and again, I can't like I'm excited to be a deputy registrar because I've heard and I'm not even like a deputy. I'm not even trying to get registered people to vote. This is just volunteer stories that people tell me that I just have to, and it breaks your heart. And
mhm.
I am so happy now, um, to be in a line of work where I actually love what I do. I'm not gonna lie. Some days I get tired, I get worn out, I get drained. Sometimes it's just a lot, especially when
You get beat up
things,
out there. It's
yeah.
hard.
But
It's
I love it at the end of the day. I love doing this. I love
great.
doing my political work and having my goofy Twitch ass self
Yeah.
doing weird stuff. But like, I'm very fortunate and lucky to have like found a calling, found a purpose, and just go straight into that. Especially one that like I don't always get paid, but when I do, it's nice. When I don't,
Right.
it's
Yeah.
personally fulfilling. But like it is just one of those things where it's just like it's a beautiful thing, and it's like if you feel like making active change, find a community, find your local organizations that you can actually get behind, because you'd be surprised how many job opportunities can actually open up for you
Yeah.
through that, and how rewarding it is if you do something you love. Then it can be so fulfilling, and you will surprise how much it can actually change and impact your life. I will say, and anyone who saw my tweet, but I'll reiterate here: 2020 has been the most transformative year for me from a mindset. I used to believe so many different things, and now I kept most of those beliefs, but they've changed. The perspective on those beliefs have changed drastically. And in addition, like I had to thank 2020. A lot of people say it was the
Right.
worst year. A lot of people say it was but I think it was just a year of where a lot of stuff just blew up. It was a year of change, and I think a lot of people saw it as a year of negativity. I saw it as a year of positivity because
Right.
2020 gave me the tools, the resources, and the information that I needed to actually make positive change within my community. And the
Right.
fact that I've been able to successfully make that positive change in the community has been just life changing for me. And and
Absolutely.
and 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 I love it. I love it so much. Like a lot of people may hate 2020, but I'm gonna say I love it. So
2020 was so rough, like in so many ways, personally and everything. But I agree. Like I had so much personal growth. I found my purpose. Just so many opportunities. I was in a fucking music video. Like I got to like
oh yeah, I
check
gotta
off
check that
something
out.
list. Yes, it's All Our Time. The song is All Our Time. The artist is San Antonio's own Xavier Omar. It
Oh
is
hey.
such a good song. I love the song, and I'm just so honored that I got to be in it. But I mean, yes, I got, yeah, bucket list stuff during a damn panorama. And it's like, yeah, I'm just super grateful for every single person that I met, especially you, Justice. I'm so grateful to have met you and our friendship. So thank you so much. Getting all mushy.
Oh my goodness. And then I guess have you watched anything recently? Is there anything you want to recommend to everybody? Well, they're yeah, you I'm talking to you.
Well, Okay, so I told y'all I'm trying to give my brain a little bit of a break. Like I've been like obsessively learning Spanish. I switched my phone to Spanish, so like I'm all in. And I have an iPhone. There's a new iPhone coming out, so now mine's demon possessed. So I've been having to troubleshoot in Spanish. So why did we get here? What? Oh, suggestions. So
Suggestions.
my
You
brain
know, no,
break.
this is a way better conversation because now, when you said that, now I'm wondering: is it every time I text you, is it automatically translated into Spanish, or does it still come out as English?
No, it's English, but I have the option like in my text, like I can switch it over to Spanish and I have my Engay and stuff like that. But like some stuff now, like some of my apps will be in Spanish and I set up a Zoom meeting. I sent Josie the Zoom meeting link for Sunday morning and it was all in Spanish. I was like, oh, my bad, girl. But she loved it. But my professor, my wonderful radical registrar, Anna. She's so amazing. She's helping me with my Spanish lessons. She suggested I watch Bly Manor on Netflix because they talk really slow and to put it in Spanish. But and however, the children got to me first about fucking Bridgerton. And so and so I've been watching Bridgerton on Netflix, which if I get the math right, it is Gossip Girl plus Downton Abbey plus Shonda Rhimes equals Bridgerton. So
That
that's
is an interesting mix.
it is. It is, but it's like Shonda Rhimes should just sprinkle some crack on it. It's so addicting. I'm like, this is some fucking mess. But then here I am, 5 episodes in, like, okay, girl, so now what you go to?
So now, what you gonna do?
So I've been watching Bridgerton. Always RuPaul's Drag Race. RuPaul's Drag Race brought me so much joy in 2020. Like legit, when I tell you I was like in the room depressed sometimes. Like I was watching Drag Race. I rewatched Drag Race UK, which is just amazing television. I love Drag Race UK so much. I watched Canada, except I need to figure out how to watch the last episode. No spoilers. I did not get to watch the last episode. The new season just started. So Drag Race always brings such a bright spot to my day. What else did I watch? If I think about it, I'll tell you.
Oh my goodness. Season 12 was such a positive. This is unrelated to that, but season 12 is such a positive season.
Of
Like,
Drag Race?
yeah, there's like no little to no drama.
Right. Yeah.
And it was just everyone just really wanted to support each other in that, and I thought that was very. Everyone was pretty much candid in the way they wanted to speak about their issues and stuff like that, and I like that. I like that. Like it was very direct, very straightforward. This is how I'm feeling. This is how I'm feeling. All right, cool. Let's squash it. Cool. We're good. We're good.
Right.
Cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was actually gonna say because I just when I walked into the house today, apparently on Netflix, Nicolas Cage. It's a new
Oh,
thing, The History of Curse Words,
yes. And those are some of my favorite words. So I might have to check that out.
and it is downright informative and hilarious. And
Oh, it's oh,
It's like Nicolas Cage doing a dictionary, a history
okay.
of words from the dictionary, but they're all curse words, and it is hilarious because he is like full on fireplace behind him, nice little chair that he's in, full scoff like tuxedo, not even tuxedo, whatever fancy old man
Yes.
like rich person setup, hair slick back,
Hmm.
Nicolas Cage, but still with the like, so fuck, what does it mean? How can you use? And it's. I'm gonna watch that.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out.
I
Did somebody have it
100%.
on like when you knocked on the door today or what?
Yeah, no, and not like when I opened, it was like literally I like walked in and I was like, what the hell is
Mm.
this, like a Criminal Minds documentary? Because it's like done in the style of like there was like this one person talking about it, and they're like, "Fuck, what does the word fuck mean?" And I'm like, "Oh, okay, this is not Criminal Minds. This is
At all.
what is this?" And then Nicolas Cage just shows up out of nowhere, like, "Okay, so the word fuck has been used over the years, and I'm just like, what the hell am I watching?
Dear.
And what is with all these weird 70s porno positions that you're doing, my dude?
Oh,
He's
fuck.
fully dressed, but it doesn't. The positions and the atmosphere are still there,
Mm.
and it's hilarious. I love it. It was such a good. It was
I'll
such
give
a
it a
good thing. I was asking us if we support Black Lives Matter.
yes.
Like yes, we both support Black. Like we, come on now, come on now, yeah,
Absolutely.
yay, yeah, no, of course. There's a lot of like different spectrums when it comes to Black Lives Matter, but yes, we both support Black Lives Matter. We're both advocates for it, and again, that's our own personal thing, hoopala. But we hope that a lot of people would. But you know, it's hard sometimes. I don't know what else
I
to say
just
about
want my
that.
life to matter to everyone. Like,
I know, right?
equally
I just
to
want the right
everybody
to
else's.
exist.
Yeah.
But yeah, of course we do. Yeah. And with that, we are wrapping it up because we both have to get to bed. This has been a real fun conversation. I have had a blast. I am so happy for every single person who has come in here to share their thoughts. Val, you have been such a pleasure. It has been so awesome. I love having these conversations, and maybe in the future we could just have one where we're just talking about nothing but just random stuff.
I can be down with that.
Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. Again, if you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe, please like, please follow, please share all of this information. We want to spread this as much as possible. And get ready for January 10th. I'm hoping to have this out by sometime this week. That way we can share this so people are informed about this event that's going on.
Oh, thank you.
But yeah, please spread the word. Go get registered to vote. It gives you so much more power than you realize. Talk about ranked choice voting with your local municipal county, and be awesome, guys. 100%. Val, thank you again for being with us and talking to us about voting.
Thank you. Thank y'all.
And you guys be awesome. Bye-bye. Now, how do I turn it off? Because apparently I lost my mouse.
Oh my God.
I lost my mouse. Oh, there it is. Found it. Bye!